Hey, what's going on, guys? In this video, I want to talk about my experience with the Hyros ads tracking platform. Now, in a previous video, I went over what Hyros is, how much it costs, and what the basic use cases are for this platform. Now, I wanted to wait before I came out with this video until I'd had experience running Hyros with a bunch of different ad accounts, different channels for both Google and Facebook, and on a bunch of different business models, especially business models around physical products and info products, both e-commerce type funnels where you're selling products in a very short sales cycle, meaning people are coming in and buying products within the first 1 to 7 days, as well as other funnels using a much more protracted sales cycle, including things like calls, where people are getting on the phone with a sales rep and having to be closed over a much longer period of time. So in this video, I'm gonna talk about my experience based on running many ad accounts using Hyros, what I think of it, what the use cases are, some of the pros and cons, and I'm also gonna give some of my counter arguments for some of the issues that people bring up when discussing whether or not Hyros is worth it. And now real quick, before I get into this, I wanna start by saying I was extremely skeptical of using Hyros when I first came in contact with the platform, especially because in some of the advertising for the platform, I saw that they weren't explicitly talking about what the technology was that was allowing people to get better performance with their ads. So that made me very skeptical. After I learned more about the platform and had experience with it, I realized that this likely had to do with the fact that getting deep into the technical details for how ad tracking works using Hyros probably wouldn't be a very effective way to sell the product, just because of the inherent deep technical nature of doing things like attribution modeling for paid advertising. So that being said, that's just a long-winded way of saying that don't think because in the marketing for Hyros, they're aggressively marketing the product as something that can get you better performance on ads. Don't let that scare you away into thinking that they're not, actually telling the truth about the technology that they're selling to you. My experience is that the technology that the Hyros platform is built on, it does work. I'm gonna get into a little bit of why. I'm gonna get slightly more technical than probably some of the ads for the Hyros platform, but just enough so you can start to understand why this actually is gonna help you with your advertising and why it's probably gonna be worth it if you're spending, $20,000, $30,000 a month or more on advertising. So real quick, the main problems that Hyros solves: uploading offline event sets, tracking sales for your ads farther back than the default attribution window for most ad platforms allow you to do, and then having an easy way to implement server-side type tracking or non-client side tracking, meaning you're not having to rely on standard pixels like the ones most Facebook and Google advertisers are using. Now, if you didn't understand all that, don't worry. I'm gonna get into a more in-depth and simplified explanation for all of those 3 issues that I just hit. And I'm also gonna wrap up with some of the counter arguments to some of the things people bring up as being potential issues for this platform. So first, alternatives to Hyros if you want to build the same technology yourself. Essentially, if you're gonna build what Hyros allows you to do for your ad platforms on your own, you would likely need engineers, people experienced with analytics engineering and data engineering. Specifically, you would likely have to build your own marketing database where you have some system of keeping track of leads that are coming in your business, some system of tagging those leads based on where they're coming in, the actions they've taken in your funnels for your business, and then a system, your own credit system for attributing sales to different ads and channels as users are coming into your business. And you'd likely have to design that attribution system on your own, meaning you'd have to come up with your own attribution windows and credit models for the different actions people are taking to attribute sales to different ads and your different channels, whether that's email, organic, etc. So in order to do that, that is a pretty big job in itself, just coming up with the strategy you're gonna implement, but then actually implementing that at a technical level, doing all the tagging and tracking and feeding that data into a marketing database, figuring out how you're gonna structure that data, and then figuring out how you're gonna display it and make usable analysis with that data is quite a large problem to solve, especially for most companies that can barely afford standard marketing, let alone a full engineering staff to build out technical marketing solutions like that. So features that you would want to replicate if you were gonna build something like Hyros yourself is you'd wanna be able to track offline events. So one thing that Hyros does is it allows you to upload offline events in an automated way so that you can essentially replicate server-side tracking and not having to rely on client-side tracking, meaning pixels that are firing in a browser. So you need a way to replicate that. Right now, the standard ways to do that are some platforms like Shopify are coming up with very easy one-click solutions to replicate, 1 or 2 events happening on your site, like a purchase. But in order to get all those different events that people are used to getting with client-side tracking, you would likely have to implement server-side tracking, which right now, for most advertisers, would mean setting up a Google Tag Manager server-side container and sending events to that container and then sending all those events to your different marketing platforms from that container. For most marketers, that's quite a big job to undertake. So getting something like Hyros that allows you to just slap this onto your business and have all that going on for you and usable data from that data collection is pretty huge. Another thing, how does this change advertising in a practical sense? A lot of people will see, okay, like I believe that this is a technology that's better than what I'm gonna be able to build on my own. I get that it somehow helps me with ads, but what exactly is it doing? So one of the big things is Hyros tracks ads farther back than the default attribution window on many platforms. So as many Facebook advertisers know, the old standard attribution window for Facebook ads was 28 days. Meaning an ad that someone saw, a view-through conversion, or clicked, a click-through conversion, depending on the settings on the platform, you could get credit for that ad causing a sale up to 28 days after someone clicked or viewed that ad, depending on the setting that you had in the platform, with that 28-day window being the default. Now, what this allows you to do is see which ads are getting you sales much farther back than 28 days. And the way that most people implement this, if you were to build something like this yourself, is again with a marketing database where you're sending information about things like ad clicks and landing on different pages into a marketing database so that you can then pull that out and send it to platforms long after that normal 28-day window would be gone. And this is something you simply cannot do with client-side tracking systems that are relying on things like cookies or any sort of data that's going to be stored in the browser or any other short-term area. Without a marketing database or some way to store data for long-term, it's very difficult to do these long-term attribution windows, things like tracking ad clicks that happened 90 days ago, 180 days ago, 365 days ago. So what Hyros is doing is it's taking that whole process and it's automating it for you by handling everything I just described on the back end of their product and then sending it out to all the marketing platforms you're integrated with without you really having to do anything except a simple integration. Now that's something that's just technically beyond most products or companies that are new and trying to rapidly scale. They just don't have resources to build something like that. So that's the first thing that it does. Now, the second thing is that I mentioned that for products that are on a longer sales cycle, something like booking a call and getting a sales rep to close that, this is something that you almost have to have. Now, traditionally, a lot of people have done this through a CRM, tagging leads for which source they came in on, things like organic, paid, or even someone who got on a separate list from clicking through an email and opting into a new list or a new product, which then got someone to book a call and get on with a sales rep. In the past, people in their CRM would tag these users and try to figure out a way to keep track of all these tags and then, mark off what type of tag that user had after they went and purchased that product. Now that's a pretty hard process to really get systematized for sales reps or people who aren't, deep in any of those marketing databases, keeping track of all the tags and understanding all of that. It's going to be very difficult for anyone in your team to manually keep track of that or really keep track of the tag system you've set up in your CRM. It's difficult, it's not impossible, but Hyros makes something like that nearly automated so that you can deal with these products with longer sales cycles. Now for shorter sales cycle products, like a normal e-commerce product where people are coming and purchasing a product within the first 1 to 7 days, the biggest thing Hyros does for you, practically speaking, is it takes the place of a server-side tracking system, which is allowing you to not have to rely on events that are being fired in a browser from a pixel, which as many advertisers know in 2021, right now it's April 2021, that's very difficult to do. A lot of browsers are shutting down advertisers' ability to rely on these pixels firing events in the browser. So implementing some sort of server-side tracking system is almost required moving forward. And right now, for most companies, Hyros is actually gonna be their lowest price solution to do that. Because again, most companies don't have data engineers as part of their staff that they're paying in order to implement something like server-side tracking and then maintain it over time. This is something people really have to keep in mind when you're talking about implementing something like server-side tracking, is you're gonna have to maintain it. So when you're looking at the price of something like Hyros, and people are saying, oh, this is so expensive, they're looking at it compared to implementing client-side tracking. If they were to look at it compared to implementing server-side tracking and maintaining it, or keeping data engineers or whole engineering staff on their payroll, it's actually extremely low cost, which is what I'm trying to make the point of in this video, is that if you're an advertiser that really is spending enough to need this type of tracking, this is by far the lowest cost solution. And right now, there's not really an alternative. So it's actually, in that way, it can be extremely low cost for your business. I would say for most businesses that are spending more than $30,000 a month, Hyros will likely make up for its costs, if used correctly, almost immediately. So possible complaints that people have. One of the big ones is that a lot of people will look at what I'm talking about, tracking ads, ad clicks, and attribution, far back, 60, 90, 180 days. And they'll say, it's not necessarily super important just to keep track of what ad someone clicked first or what ad someone looked at first. And I think most people who are into this tracking and analytic space would agree with that. That's why there's many different types of attribution systems people have come up with over time to try to solve this issue of how do you give credit to different channels and sources of leads coming in and sales being made. It's a very difficult problem, partially because ultimately this decision is being made in the mind of the consumer throughout the sales cycle, and pinpointing exactly when that happens and which source of your marketing and sales material caused that to happen isn't something that's technically possible right now to a high degree of precision. But we have different ways that we can basically try to approximate when and how this is happening, and that is the study of attribution modeling. So right now there's a bunch of different models you can use, but Hyros already has some of the most popular ones built in. And right now it relies on 3 main models with one alternate system of measuring attribution. So the 3 models it uses are first seen, which you can think of like the first view or click of an ad, last clicked, which is self-explanatory, the last ad that was clicked, getting attribution for a sale, and then scientific, which is very similar to data-driven attribution modeling, which is a common feature in higher-end analytics platforms like Google 360. The last system, which is not an attribution model, but is an alternative way of dealing with this problem of attribution, is their LTV modeling system. And what's nice about this is when you look at the touch point analysis that Hyros has, letting you see when people are moving from different funnels, different points in your funnel, things like clicking an ad to opting into a list to landing on a different products page. And you can see all those steps. Once you know that, and you know the source of the person coming into your business and their lifetime value at different points throughout their customer lifecycle, meaning 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 180-day lifetime value of that customer, you don't necessarily need a highly accurate attribution model because you have all the data you need to be able to make decisions about which channels ultimately are causing people to buy your products. And you can see that because you can see the different ways they flow through the channels and parts of your funnel over time and ultimately what they're worth. For example, if you see users over time taking all the same actions on your site, but users coming in from Facebook versus users coming in from organic have a drastically different lifetime value at the same point, for example, 60 days, you know that there is something going on there and you might be better served doubling down on the channel that's getting those higher lifetime value customers. At the least, it would be enough data for you to go and investigate if it's worth spending more time and more marketing resources on those channels that are producing those higher value customers. So that is kind of my solution to some of the main concerns people have with just saying that, oh, I need to track people from further back, in their sales cycle. It does help you. The way that the data is structured in Hyros will allow you to usably analyze this data and make smart decisions because of it. And it allows you to do that out of the box, which again, the whole point of this video is that while this is in no way a perfect solution, for many people at the price point it's at, it is basically their only solution. Again, short of building your own product. So anyway, that's kind of a wrap up for all the details I wanted to get into in this video. This is mostly because of comments I received after just making an overview video of what Hyros is. A lot of people were interested in it and wanted to know more case studies of how it was used. So this is a nice intermediary between just giving you random information and giving you some practical case studies. If you guys enjoy this video, I'll go ahead and put together some actual data on ad accounts that we've run and some of the performance increases we've seen, whether that's across the entire account or just in isolated campaigns. I know at this point we definitely have enough to give you that, and we have many examples of Hyros giving us great success on different ad campaigns and whole accounts that we're running on it. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, comment below letting me know what else you'd like me to get into in more detail, either about Hyros or some of the other topics I've been getting into on this channel. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so that you're notified anytime that I come out with another video just like this. And as always, thank you guys for watching.